All right, here we are, another episode of Let There Be Talk. It is Tuesday. Yes, it is one day late today. I've been toying around with maybe starting to put them out on Tuesdays instead, every Tuesday, because I get home from road trips, I'm completely trashed, and then I got to edit the show, get it all ready, and then hope I get it out on Monday, and then I'm just fucking spent. So maybe I get home Sunday and get some sleep. There's something. There's a crazy idea. Get some sleep and then enjoy my Monday. Get my head back together and then put out the episode on Tuesday. I don't know, but anyway, here it is. And it is a fantastic episode today. I have a monster of a guest today, a legend. Mr. John Taylor is here from Duran Duran. And I don't know where you sit on your musical taste. Are you one of those guys that goes, I only listen to metal? Metal only. Duran Duran's not metal. How could you have this on? Or maybe you're a guy that's like, I don't like Duran Duran. My girl was in love with them. I'm still jealous. Or maybe you absolutely love Duran Duran. I'll tell you something right now. I'm 53. And in 1982, all kinds of music was huge. You had Michael Jackson. You had Springsteen. You had Motley Crue, Van Halen, AC/DC, Prince. All kinds of stuff. And then you had this massive explosion of kind of dance groove rock. And Duran Duran came in and just fucking took over with the perfect storm of MTV and some fantastic videos and songs. Duran Duran took over the world. I mean the world, man, selling millions of records. And they wrote these songs. They weren't just some fabricated machine from a record company. This was an actual band. And they just smoked it for years. If you look at their greatest hits, it is mind-boggling. The Reflex, View to a Kill, Save a Prayer, Rio, Hungry Like a Wolf, Wild Boys, Notorious. It goes on and on and on. These guys were the real deal, and they're still out there playing. Next year will be their 40th anniversary of being together, and they're doing a new record right now, and it was an honor to have Mr. John Taylor on the show. I think you're going to very much enjoy this man's interview. He also had a cool band in the 90s with Duff McKagan and Steve Jones called Neurotic Outsiders, which is definitely got a cult following. And, of course, he was in the Power Station, another record with monster hits with the great Robert Palmer on vocals. Okay, before I do get into the episode, we have a sad day today, a very sad day. We lost Mr. Robert Hunter today, the lyricist for the Grateful Dead's amazing super songs that were known as Hunter Garcia collaborations. Some of the greatest songs in the Dead music files. And it's definitely a brutal loss, man. This guy's lyrics are just insane. And over the last 10 years, I've just been nonstop listening to this guy's music. And it's put a smile on my face. It's made me feel good. And it's also made me try to be a better writer as far as just a comedian. They don't have anything to do with each other, but writing is super hard. And I think with Robert, he was just one of those gifts of God, just perfect fucking songs. Anyway, it's sad that he's gone, and I'll talk more about it on the bonus episode, along with my trip to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which will be out this week on Patreon. Long live Robert Hunter, man. Dark Star himself. I also want to thank everybody that came out to the Cleveland shows. I want to give a big love to the Vindies, a fantastic band. Find them on Instagram and Twitter and iTunes. And Hero Jr., another fantastic band. You can find them on iTunes, Instagram, and YouTube. Everywhere you look for music, these guys are out there. They're bands that are grinding it out, that aren't famous, that get my full respect, man. They're working musicians, and they came to the show on, I believe, Friday night, and it was just so good to see these people. We had a great time. And I also want to thank Sam, Nick, Rick, and Scott for just an amazing time. It's so nice to go to a club and the owner is just gold, man. And that's what Nick is. He is just gold when it comes to the comedy club owner. He is top notch, man. There's a few out there that just really know how to do it. Wendy at Denver Comedy Works, Nick at Cleveland Hilarities, and the Comedy Store. Gnome at the Cellar, the Stand. These people know how to treat comedians, and I can't thank you enough, Hilarities. Looking forward to coming back next year. I guess that's pretty much it. I do want to thank Aaron Griffin for my Zepp book he sent me. I cannot thank you enough, buddy. Unbelievable. And Ray Hosta, one of the two. I don't know how to say it. Thank you, buddy, for coming to 2 shows. I do want to read a quick letter before I get into the episode because it really made me feel good. And once in a while, I could get down and overworked and battling with health shit or whatever, just trying to get funny out there grinding. And once in a while, you get a letter that really makes it all worth it. And it came from Eric Nutter, or Nutter. I don't know how to say it, but I'm going to go with Nutter. Eric Nutter out in Cleveland. He handed me off this letter. And it says, Dean, I want to write a quick note and thank you, since your podcast is a regular highlight of my week. I manage concrete projects across Northeast Ohio, and as a result, have a decent amount of time behind the wheel to listen to podcasts. I really enjoy your positivity, your reminders that people should simply work harder, and you telling whoever is listening to get out of the house and off the couch. This is all obviously outside of the cool guests that you have on. So for whatever it's worth, please note that as you continue your journey, face your struggles, and fight the good fight, the vibes you are putting out into the world are improving the lives of tons of people. Thank you for all your hard work, efforts, and for chasing your dreams. It means a lot, and you should know that and be reminded of it. When I listen, it reminds me to do the same. And I got this letter, man, and it was just... It was just fantastic because it is true. You're just out there and you're grinding and you're wondering, man, is anybody even paying attention? And then you get a letter like that and it just makes it all worthwhile, man. So thank you, Eric, and big love for you. Okay, going to be in Chicago Friday night with Joey Diaz at the Chicago Theater. 1 show. A couple tickets are left. Do not sleep on this. That's this Friday. We're headed out. And I do want to welcome all the new Patreoners. Excellent amount of new subscribers on my patreon.com/Dean Delray, which, by the way, this week will be bonus episode number 50. Here we go. The great Matthew Bendelli, Jeremy Hall, Patrick Rediger, Dan Novak, Kevin Sundby, Matthew James, the great Devin Cole, and once again, I do want to thank again Aaron Griffith for this Zeppelin book. Speaking of that, are you guys getting into, you got some anxiety? You got some sleep issues? You got a little pain? What do you got? Dig into some CBD Lion. CBD oil, fully organic. That's what I've been using, and it's definitely helping my neck, man. I've been using CBD Lion nonstop. It's gluten-free, vegan, organic, third-party tested, non-GMO, zero THC, so don't worry about any kind of testing, and you're not going to get high. This all is for some straight-up body help. I'm telling you, CBDLion.com, and Lion is Lion. CBDLion.com, you're going to get 20% off everything when you use the code DEAN, D-E-A-N. And I'm telling you, I'm using this lotion right now, this 900 milligram CBD lotion on my neck, and it's just absolutely helping. And then I'm using the 1,000 milligrams for tincture under my tongue just for a little cool out that anxiety. Definitely helping for sleep and flying. And they also have CBD for pets. And I know this is helping because my neighbor's pet's a lunatic, and I hooked her up with a bottle of this, and it's been nothing but peaceful over here. Check it out, CBDLion.com. I'm not shitting you. This stuff is clean. It's not some garage chemist. It's not some junk you buy at AM, PM at the counter. This is the real deal. CBDLion.com. Use the code DEAN. Not only does it help you, but it helps the podcast, and everybody out there keeps the motor going. And I believe in CBD Lion. I really like these guys, and I can't wait to meet them this Friday in Chicago. CBDLion.com. Code is DEAN, D-E-A-N. All right, here it is. It's time for the man, Mr. John Taylor of Duran Duran. All right, here we are, another episode of Let There Be Talk. I got a legend on today. I would call you an absolute legend.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yes, man. John Taylor, Duran Duran, Power Station, Neurotic Outsiders. What else?
Father, stepfather, husband,
stepdad,
lover,
L.A. resident.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Formerly of Birmingham, land of Black Sabbath.
Yes. The second city.
Did you ever see Sabbath back then?
The only time I went to see Sabbath, I didn't like Sabbath growing up at all. I didn't like heavy rock. I didn't like heavy metal. I didn't relate to the kids that were into it. But I went to see a Sabbath show because Brian James from The Damned had a band that he started after he joined the band called Tanster Youth. And for a minute, they were hot. They did a John Peel session, and they were like my favorite band for 2 weeks. And they opened for Sabbath. So I went to see them. I went to that gig, and that was the only time that I found. I think I went with Nick Rhodes, actually. You know, we were like, you know, and when it became the Sabbath gig, we were like, shit, we got to get out of here. You know, they might turn us.
Oh, well, what year are we talking? Like 78, like probably the end of Sabbath. Like that's towards the end of the Aussie era, and punk rock's really starting to hit big time. The Clash and
post.
Yeah,
we're into post punk now. We're looking for the next thing, and you know, the Clash and the Pistols have sort of made their mark. And now you've got this just like, you know, this insane diaspora where like the punk energy has just opened the door to anybody and everything. And but you know, you're starting to get like James Brown grooves and like electro textures and like, you know, somebody like the B-52s, somehow they kind of get in under the new wave punk.
Yeah,
and like
Devo,
and all hell is breaking loose. And there's room for everyone.
Yeah. I was just talking to a guy a couple of days ago, Joey Diaz and I, we talk music a lot. He's a comedian. And we think B-52s is just so radical if you watch early footage compared to, of course, what they came later, you know. But that early shit was just killer.
Well, that was just... I mean, I don't know what it's like now, but it felt like it was a time where, like, every week there was a Gotta Have record, and I'd walk into my local Virgin Records on a Saturday afternoon, and that record would be playing. And I remember Rock Lobster playing, and everybody being did, what is this? And they were like, I mean, they were kind of an interesting. They were kind of a combination. They kind of had to be American in a way. I went to see them play. Also, I mean, the one thing that I didn't like that was happening in '78, there was this sort of like skinhead revival thing that sort of grew out of the more hardcore elements of punk rock, and Sham 69, also like the ska thing that was coming out of the Midlands, and I saw a few really gnarly episodes. And again, Nick and I, we went to see the B-52s when they first came to Birmingham, and these skinheads they would just like appear and mob the stage and stop the show. And I remember Fred Schneider sort of going, "Oh my, you English skinheads, you're so cute," like wham, wham, oh, man. And it was tricky. It was a dodgy time. But also for me, and Nick, that's where we kind of retreated into like making our own music. That was the point where we were like, we've got to do our own thing.
Early on, you were playing guitar.
Yeah.
And what made you switch to bass?
Yeah.
Were you not great at guitar, or did you want to rock on bass? What was it?
Well, I definitely wasn't great on guitar. I don't know whether I would have ever become great on guitar, but it was when Roger joined, because I'd only ever played. The degree to which I'd played guitar, I'd been playing with either very, very drummers with very limited know-how, or sort of electronic drum patterns. And when Roger came on board, and at that point we were like, there was Nick and I, we had a singer, Andy, and Andy introduced us to Rog, and so suddenly we got a drummer who can really play. And the first Duran demos, I'm playing guitar, and so I plug in and play bass lines, and that feeling of playing with Rog and just like doing these fills together and like really getting into the idea of building a rhythm section. And the rhythm sections that we were really liking were not punk rhythm sections.
They were very funky.
Yeah, I mean Dennis Davis and George Murray, who were Bowie's rhythm section, on Low and Station to Station. I mean, they were like our primary influence. Also the rhythm sections that Roxy Music were using around about that time. So we were really aspiring. We had like punk rock chops, but we were aspiring to like, Black American kind of quality. So yeah, and chic, also, and that sort of the disco sounds that
were you into like Earth, Wind and Fire and that kind of stuff?
I got into Earth, Wind and Fire later. Chic came to me. I mean, I heard them. They spoke to me in a. I mean, it was. I don't know how it was. There was something. They're a very under the core of the Chic sound is a power trio. Is a funky power trio, and even though they got all the bells and whistles, the strings and the chick singers and all that, at the core they've got this incredible sort of syncopated power trio.
Yeah,
and that spoke to me, and the bass spoke to me. I mean, it was the first. I mean, listening to the bass playing on like Everybody Dance, I was like, wow, I think I could do that.
Yeah,
and I remember that octave bass thing that like. I remember hearing that Sylvester song, "You Make Me Real," and thinking, "Wow, that sounds really easy." And so, kind of getting a couple of effects, like being able to go dum dum bum bum, bum 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 bum. That was like a big one.
Yeah.
And then Roger going, "Oh yeah," so I go boom 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 boom, boom 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 boom. I mean, we could play that for hours.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it was really fun. And I thought it was, after a couple of years of very guitar-driven music, which was punk, it felt like this was like a time for rhythm sections, and where rhythm sections could kind of drive the direction of the music. and sort of so yeah, I think it was having a running mate in Roger. They're like, wow, we can really grow something together.
I mean, your bass playing, dude, is outrageous as far as like just groove, like Girls on Film, that kind of shit. When it comes on, it's like, I mean, it's funny because I look at the punk rock era at the same time the disco era was going. I was into both, like I love Saturday Night Fever and Earth, Wind and Fire and Lakeside, all that shit. But when Duran Duran comes out, it's, straight up 82. We got Van Halen's huge, AC/DC, Motley Crue's starting to hit. But at the same time, I'm 53. It's this fucking Duran Duran is everywhere. And the way it crossed over was just like mind-boggling to me. It was like everybody was down. There was no like, I don't listen to that shit. People were like, yeah, put that on. Then we'll put on some Van Halen. Then we'll put on some Prince, And a lot of it had to do with just those grooves.
Yeah. Well, I think what a lot of people who weren't there don't get about the early 80s, it was a dance scene.
Yeah.
Everybody was dancing. And so if it didn't make it on the dance floor, which, Jump did, for example.
Of course.
And everybody wanted that crossover. I think it went back to the late 70s where, artists like the Stones, even Zeppelin, Rod Stewart, Bowie, they wanted to be heard in Studio 54.
Oh yeah, Emotional Rescue.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah. So like even though there was this sort of like line between, the rock and R&B, the musicians wanted to cross over, and they wanted. I mean, there was nothing. I mean, I remember when Bowie played Soul Train.
Oh yeah.
Like, wow. That was. I mean, it wasn't like. In fact, my only exposure to Soul Train was the occasional time that film of like maybe a British artist would be shown in the UK, but you knew that was something really, really special. But so nobody ever said you can't do that.
Yeah.
I think what Duran really, like I said, there was a lot of drive and ambition in that band, and what we lacked in technique or know-how, we made up for with, cojones,
Yeah.
we just like, nobody said you can't do that. So, and I think that also like music is always in a process, like all art really is in a process of always simplifying itself in order to reach the greatest possible number. And so, I mean, we could track any number of licks, that were like, say, originated by some like really heavy jazz dudes, in the East Village, that sort of then that riff sort of makes its way, so like 20 years later, somebody's using it on Saturday Night Live, and some, we're always trying to find a way, because musicians are always aspiring to be better than what they really are. And generationally, we're always taking like ideas that to us are really like what we're aspiring to doing, and typically what we're playing is probably, a less technical version of what it was that inspired us in the first place. But then there's an audience for that. In some ways, there's a greater audience for that.
Now, when you guys do the demo, before you do the demo, you had different singers besides Simon.
Yeah.
How different was it compared to Simon?
Well, we had a couple of really kind of extraordinary singers, actually. I mean, Stephen Tintin Duffy, that I formed the band with in art college. I mean, Stephen was a old school singer-songwriter, aspired to sort of Lou Reed, Nick Drake, wrote very interesting lyrics, played fretless bass. Steve would go on. He'd start a band called the Lilac Time, who have a strong indie rep, you could say. There was a guy, Andy Wickett. I mean, back in the day, we used to rehearse in this house in the center of the city of Birmingham, and there were two bands in there. There was a band called TVI. You can imagine what they sounded like. They were like. Stones, Stooges, kind of like, they were like the pure rock thing. And then there was us doing our sort of hybrid electro, disco thing, and there was a real battle of the bands going on, you know, and then there was some kind of big fallout. TVI split up, and somehow the singer ended up with us. His name was Andy Wickett, and you know he was a phenomenal singer, and we did a few shows with him, and he brought a guy on stage with him that would sort of sing backups. I mean, he actually had some pretty sophisticated ideas about singing, but you know, you've got to have to sort of make it. It doesn't necessarily mean you've got to be the best.
Oh, we know that.
You know,
you got to have something.
You know, and Andy was like a really fucking behind the mic. He was really talented, but take the mic away from him, and he was a fucking numbskull.
Yeah.
You know, and you couldn't envisage taking the journey with him. You know, I mean, we actually but the evolution of the sound of the band. You know, as we worked our way through, probably 4, maybe 5 singers before I met Mr. Le Bon.
Wow.
But by the time Simon walked into the room, the sound of the band was in place.
So it was all set, and then you knew what you were looking for a singer.
Well, we didn't really know what we were looking for.
You were just wanting something that was going to lay in there like, wow.
We just like, it's just when he walked in, we were like, that's you, you're it.
Just from the look?
Well, the look, he had a book of lyrics with him, which was like, lyrics!
Wow, yeah.
Wow, what do they look like? You know?
Yeah.
And he was suave, man. I mean, he was like, he walked in and he was, you know, we were all kind of like from the north.
Yeah.
You know, Nick, Roger and I were from the Midlands. By this point, we've got Andy. He's come down from Newcastle, you know, and Simon walks in. He's in Birmingham doing a drama course. You know, he's an actor.
Yeah.
But like he's hip to the new Simple Minds album, Susie and the Banshees. You know, we're kind of ticking the boxes on the music that we're into, and we sort of play him a couple of songs. I think the first song we played him was a track that he goes, "Can I hear that again?" And he opens his book. He's got this poem called "The Sound of Thunder," and he walks up, and that was like, well, that's a song. We've got a song. And you know, it's sometimes, you know, I often talk to, you know, people trying to get things of their own thing going, you know, in their 20s or whatever. And I think the urgency and the DIY nature of the scene as it was that we were talking about at the beginning of this conversation, the energy was so intense. You know, Simon reminded me recently when we were talking about it, it was like, okay, we just need 10 more because we've got a gig in 4 weeks' time.
Yeah, that's how it was.
And like, you know, we were working at this club, you know, we were rehearsing at this club. So we were like, and I think Simon probably came in on like, you know, May the 26th. And then we started printing up these tickets for flyers for this gig that we were going to do on July the 1st. And that was like 40 years ago next July 1st.
Wow.
And it was like, okay, so, you know, everybody just set about the task, you know.
So you guys go do this demo, and there's a bidding war.
Well, we you know, we had management in place before Simon walked into the room. You know, we'd already, you know, part of what we were building, you know, unknowingly, you know, because, you know, we'd gone to this nightclub looking for a gig, and they didn't have bands play, but they had these kind of like glam nights and these kind of retro nights, and we thought, well, maybe they'd let us have a night that we could perform there. This is not the Simon Le Bon version of the band. Nick and I go there and we play the demo that we've just been talking about, and the owner of the club really likes it, and, you know, and says, you know, what, my brother and I have been thinking about getting into management. So, you know, then we start getting involved with these guys, but 2 members of the band as was sort of fall out. So it's like Roger, Nick and I, and these 2 guys, you know, and now we're already planning world domination, you know, but we don't have a singer or a guitar player. But, you know, it was such a, you know, it's really hard to describe how it was being at the center of that scene, you know. Sex Pistols, December 1976, Anarchy in the UK, the Anarchy Tour, they're like on the front page of every paper for like a month. Every boy in my year at school wants to be in a band, wants to play something.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, that term, youthquake. I mean, that's really what it was about. Wow, we got to get into this. So it just started this, like, it was just amazing. So things happened really quickly. And, you know, and it went all the way up. So, you know, the CEOs and the A&Rs and the, you know, they're all looking, you know, and they all know that there's money to be made, and that, you know, so, you know, we went on the road. You know, another thing that you would do back then is you try to get an opening slot on a nationwide tour.
Of course.
So, you know, one of the things that the managers did for us was that they put up like, I don't know, 10 grand, and we got this opening slot on a national tour. This gal called Hazel O'Connor, she'd been the star of this film Breaking Glass, and she was having a minute. So we got to go around and play places like the Wilton, play places like the Beacon Theatre, but in the UK,
right?
Equivalent. So we could start inviting all the labels to come and see us in good venues with lighting rigs and dry ice.
Now you guys signed to EMI, which is amazing. This Beatles and everything,
yeah.
And you guys get this record out. It's, to me, at the time, there was nothing that sounded like this. First of all, when you record the first record, who produced this thing? And how the hell, I just listened to it over and over again. It'd been a while. Right. It sounds spectacular. Right. I mean, when you put it on, you're like, wow, man, listen to this record. It has so much depth.
Yeah, well, we hooked up with EMI, and an A&R man there called Dave Ambrose, who started coming to see the band and, you know, really liked us and wanted to sign us, and he brought Colin Thurston to meet us. And Colin had two arrows in his bow, and one was that he had just produced the Human League's first album, and I think he was working with Magazine, but he'd also engineered the Iggy Pop David Bowie Berlin sessions.
Oh wow!
And so, you know, he was the engineer on Lust for Life, and
wow.
And you know, he did exactly what you want a producer to do. I don't think any one of us had played better than we played when we went into the studio to record for Colin. He was an engineer producer, so he did it all. He would run the console,
kind of like a Glenn Johns.
Yeah, run the console, but also tell you, let's try another one. Maybe lay back a little bit on the verses, you know, giving that kind of direction. But basically, the songs were there. You know, the first album is basically the songs that we've written.
Who were writing the songs? Who were the core writers?
Well, you know, really, in a way, the terms were set with that first song, which was the musicians created a piece.
Yep.
That the singer wrote lyrics.
Simon.
Over. So in a way, and that's kind of the way that we've always written. Although, you know, Simon will influence where the music's going, and we'll influence where the lyrics are going to go.
Right.
But it was, and I don't know how that happened, but again, it was one of our principles from the very beginning. I remember saying to Simon, we split everything 5 ways. Everything.
Awesome.
And I don't know why. I guess it was unconscious self-preservation. It was like bass players don't tend to get paid as much as singers. No, I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
But something told me.
It was a team.
Exactly.
It was a team.
Yeah.
I think that's why bands, when they first get rolling, if they split it 5 ways and a band hits, there's not any animosity, because you get these bands where they hit, 2 guys wrote the songs, and all of a sudden they've got houses and Ferraris, and the other 2 guys are in a condo in Studio City, and they're getting touring money and stuff, which is cool, but after a while it does become it becomes a thorn in the side.
Yeah, and I think maybe if we'd have had a more kind of conventional success, maybe it would have. But sort of the way that when we exploded as like this teen pop phenomena, where like, you know, even the bass player was on the cover of magazines.
It was insane.
You know,
it was insane. It was the new Beatles for sure.
So it was like, no, everybody's equal in this outfit.
I read somewhere and I really related to this, and I don't know if you really said this, but there was a time where, of course, you become the teen idols. You're fucking everywhere. Teen Beat, Tiger Beat, Dream Magazine, just any kind of those. But at the same time that it was really helping you, it was cursing you maybe in a legitimate music world of people thinking they're just a boy band, even back then, you know, because we have boy bands all the way to now. Did you feel that way? Like, fuck, this is great, but it sucks at the same time?
I don't ever remember thinking it sucks.
Well, I mean, it's that double-edged sword, right?
I think Andy perhaps felt that. You know, Andy was the most he was the most musical of all of us. And he was the one who was least interested in glamour. You know, he was the one that was least interested in being a pinup. I mean, I didn't realize how interested I was in being a pinup until I was a pinup.
Yeah.
And then I was like, wow, I really love it. Even now I'll say to my wife, somebody will come on the Emmys and I'll say, I was on her bedroom wall, you know, when she was a teenager.
Oh, yeah.
I love it. I'm so proud to be a pinup. But he didn't give two hoots.
Yeah.
And so he kind of like pushed back against it. But I think it was all part of the dynamic that forged the working principle of the band. And I don't think in those first 3 years, which was from Planet Earth to View to a Kill, you know, from Birmingham to Live Aid.
Yeah. Live Aid,
that we ever sort of, you know, that we ever played to our fame. I think we always made the best that we could have made. That our songwriting evolved without, you know, I mean, our second album is a more impressive album than our first album.
Oh, yeah.
Third album was tricky, but, you know, we went through a change in producer and, you know, and it's an album that we can all feel good about now. Rounding out with Wild Boys and View to a Kill, two sort of stone cold, you know, classics.
I love View to a Kill.
Yeah, and
I think it's a great
we
song.
sort of managed to sort of stick, you know, the Power Station project and the Arcadia project into those early years. So it was a lot, you know. So I don't think, you know, I mean, look, it's a lot of pressure when you are, you know, when you are on top. And, you know, we were young. We didn't know each other that well.
Yeah, I know, right? I mean, you didn't know Simon from a hole in the wall.
No.
And all of a sudden you guys are huge.
Yeah, but we were talking about it the other day, actually, and we were saying, like, you know, from that moment, from that first day when we made that decision to work together, we had each other's back, 100%. You know, and it was like we're on a mission, you know, and it was, and I don't know how this works because nobody ever taught me this, but you know, and I certainly wasn't a team player at school, but I just knew that we were as good as we were strong together,
Right.
you know, and you know, there was some heavy weather back there, man.
Oh my
you know,
God.
I mean, I'm just glad we all survived. It can get pretty nuts.
I was going to ask about that because when you do get shot out of a cannon like that, we can look at it with the history of bands that have done that, especially, say, a Guns N' Roses, I would say equal to you as far as like, whoa, what the fuck? That can fall apart real quick. Drugs, egos, people don't know how to handle that. All kinds of crazy shit, and you guys weathered the storm, man, and you were getting better and better, and the records didn't take years to come out. These fucking things came out, and they were loaded with hits, so you guys had a work ethic, obviously, of like, let's do this, you know? I compare you a lot to the Cars, where you have so many fucking hits. I'm looking through this right here. If you wanted to buy this greatest hits, you want to talk about getting your money's worth. You got The Reflex, View to a Kill, Save a Prayer, Rio, Hungry Like a Wolf, Girls on Film. Just that right there. Notorious, The Wild Boy. I mean, this thing is insane how many hits you guys have. It is unbelievable. And what's great is you guys fucking wrote them. Because the whole time, I remember when Duran Duran came out at first, I was like, did these guys even write this shit? Had to be some dudes in that Beatles factory coming up with here's some old tunes. And oh, man.
Jimmy Page playing that guitar.
Yeah, I mean, you guys wrote these fucking songs.
Yeah.
It is awesome, man.
Yeah. No, it's... but, it's why I'm... we're talking about the times, because the times were who we were of our time.
Yeah.
And you just didn't, that was why you got into it, to write songs. It was like, what was that famous fanzine in the punk era that Sniffing Glue, and they had 3 hand-drawn chords on the cover of the magazine. Here's 3 chords, now form a band.
Yeah.
And for me, wherever I can walk into a church hall and I see like a little stage and I go, there's a stage, write a show. And just that idea of like, I just was so, that idea of like, oh yeah, okay, so you get everybody in the room, then you take the lights down and then the lights will come up on you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you make something happen that's interesting and entertaining. And that's still the thing for me, man. That's my jam. Yeah. Is that like all of this is life is foreplay for when the lights go down. Always have felt that way.
Yeah.
And that's our and I think also Duran, we have this real sense of the multidisciplinary aspect of what happens when the lights go down. I said we just did a run of shows actually, and the first show I came back home, I said to my wife, I said, God, I was on stage tonight and I was thinking about how many things I had to think about in each moment. I got to remember where my hands are at. I got to remember whether I need to be at the mic. I got to remember whether I got to punch a button. I got to remember where I'm standing. So the lights, and all this. Oh, I got to go and like shake my booty at the keyboard player in the bridge and all this. And I'm thinking, how did I ever imagine I could do a better job, like under the influence of drugs or alcohol?
Yeah.
It's like driving drunk.
Oh.
Like you've really got to be with it, man.
Yeah. It's a young man's game.
Yeah.
It's a young man's game.
Yeah. But we love that, what are we going to put in the screen content? From an early, it's a multimedia kind of package.
Well, you guys were genius on your videos too.
We were lucky. Is what we were, and that's really where technology and the times
came together.
Yeah.
I mean, the MTV, and on top of that, you guys have these 35 millimeter films. They weren't videos. These things were fucking films.
Well, yeah,
and they cost millions to make.
No, hang on a second.
Yeah?
Not at the beginning they didn't.
Whoa.
And I remember the first song that's come out, Planet Earth, and we're going back to a time now where you had singles. So one song comes out. We don't have, it's not about streaming, so it's not an international kind of like, everywhere release all at once. And the song is like moving up the popularity charts. I feel like I have to use terms like that now to explain to people, that don't know what a chart is. But like people are buying the song in increasing numbers, over a period of a few weeks. The song's moving up the popularity chart in the UK, simultaneously in Australia. At the same time, we're like, wow, that's cool. Like the place that's like the farthest away, Australia, they're digging us, And so, I remember a conversation with our manager and like, the head of like, Asia, Australasia at EMI saying, well, you could go there and play some shows, but it is a long way to go. You could make a promotional video. And my manager being, well, what's that exactly? And this, well, we just filmed the band in a performance and, So like a couple of weeks later, we're all like, we're showing up at this film studios in London, and none of us really know why we have to be here.
Right.
What is this? There's no audience.
Who's going to see it?
We're going to mime.
Yeah.
Boring.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, but, that was the first day we met Russell Mulcahy, who really would become, along with Colin Thurston, one of the people that was responsible for making Duran Duran stars. And Russell, it was just like meeting him, where he was one of the founding fathers of the video era.
Yeah.
And he totally understood it. And by the end of the afternoon, we were like, holy shit, this is amazing. He kind of showed us a few little tricks.
Oh, wow.
About, like, there's a scene at the end where Simon like appears to like jump off the mount, like that we're playing on this like mountaintop, and he kind of jumps off and, falls into this abyss, and we're like, how did you do that?
Yeah.
And it was just super cool. And of course we all look pretty glamorous in it, and we're all like, wow, and everybody gets a close up, and I think it cost us, the equivalent of about 10,000 US.
Wow.
So
nothing back then.
Yeah. So we're not talking. It really wasn't until the mid '80s. Well, we spent the first video we spent megabucks on was Wild Boys.
Yeah.
And that was because by now you're having to fight off Michael Jackson.
Oh yeah, and Madonna.
By now you got these megabucks.
Yeah.
American productions.
Yep.
Everybody's getting it. And now we've got
Beat It and stuff like that.
To compete
there were
with
films.
That. Yeah.
That one you guys did on the yacht, that thing is fucking smoking.
Yeah, but so off the wall.
But so great, because to me it was like, that's who these guys are, just out on a yacht. They're rich rock
just
stars.
Having fun as you do.
Yeah.
Throwing the guitar player over the edge.
Oh, man. You guys, when you explode in the U.S., what is that tour like?
Crazy.
I mean, I understand. I've seen footage. I understand the level of it, and I know what was going on. But we got to talk about, you guys did Live Aid.
Yeah, well, the scale of shows, we don't in the UK. I mean, more so now, but at that time, there really were no what you would call here arena-sized venues. So, most artists are playing 2,500, 3,000.
Yeah, like
theaters.
Hammersmith.
Exactly.
Shit like that.
Yeah, playing Velvet Seats.
Yep.
Like towards the end of the 70s, bands like the Stones are seeing we make a lot more money when we play to 10,000 people. So, they're playing to they're finding agricultural show sheds. I mean, really crappy venues that they can jam as many people into as possible. And one of the reasons why the punk thing, happened was it was kind of like a pushback against all of a sudden bands like The Who. They don't want to play Hammersmith anymore. They want to play these, places like Earl's Court. And so there was nowhere really like that. So, I mean, when we played, on the third album, everything's kind of exploded around Rio, And,
of course.
And then we come back with the third album, and I think the first show was in Seattle, and it was at the Coliseum there.
Oh yeah,
and
where the Supersonics played.
Yeah, and it was the first
Zeppelin played there.
Right, and it was the first time we'd played to 18,000 screaming kids.
Wow.
I think the biggest audience we probably played to was about 5 up until then, or maybe 8 at Wembley Arena. But so you got 3 times that, and I mean the sound coming off you couldn't hear yourself think.
Yeah.
And so that whole tour, which is chronicled in the documentary Sing Blue Silver,
thing's so great.
It's and we're holding on by a skin of our teeth.
Yeah.
And it's also, and it's that time where it's happening in real time. So they're like, we want to add more dates. And we're all like, we're so wasted. We're like, we need a break. Just one more week of shows. Oh,
those fuckers, right? Just the greed machine.
And then we get to and then we film it, and then we got to come back and refilm some shots. And then we were kind of, I mean, I guess that was 83, 84 was that. I mean, it was, and then we were kind of burnt out, to be honest.
Is that when Andy splits?
Andy splits, kind of at the end of that tour, yeah. And somehow we managed to we did Wire Boys, then we did View to a Kill, and we did Band-Aid, and then we kind of just fizzled out, and everybody kind of went off in different directions, and we just, and I don't know, I mean, I'm not even sure if I would have gone back, I mean, I think we were all in our own headspace. And then Nick, Nick came. I was living in New York by then, and Nick came. We had dinner, and he was like, "Hey, it's time to come on, man. It's time to do another band album."
Was it because
and
you
I was
guys
like,
were just burned?
I don't know. I'm kind of like directing my own videos now.
Yeah. Was it because was there turmoil or tension because of Exploded, or was it just a genuine burnout?
Yeah, genuine burnout.
Right.
And and everybody was so tired and confused and conflicted, and and we just needed a decent break from each other, which was essentially what we did, because and actually when I got back into the room with Nick and Simon, it was great. And then it was like, well, Roger wasn't coming back, he wasn't game, he needed a longer break, and Andy didn't want to come back to the band.
Yeah, he put out that solo album.
Yeah.
And that was a great solo album.
Yeah.
Totally different.
Yeah, I mean, he had a fantastic band. He came out to...
Shit was rocking.
Yeah, he formed a band with Steve Jones
Yeah.
and Terry...
I think he had, what's his name on drums? Bozio?
Terry Bozio, yeah.
Yeah.
But, he was never a front man. He was never comfortable being up front, Andy. And... but, it kind of like... And that was when I kind of learned about this sort of like that like... backs to the wall, the three of us had as much sort of guts that the five of us had, because now we're on the defensive. And this is when people are saying, Duran Duran, you're done, you've had your time. And which everybody goes through. You kind of come out, you kind of have fame first time around, and then I think particularly with music in Britain, where they have just this incredible appetite for newness, for new shit.
Of course. Always give me the next thing.
Yeah, and that's great, because it makes for a very fertile opportunity. There's a lot of opportunity. I mean, honestly, I think almost anybody can have a hit. Because there's so much appetite. I mean, here too.
Yeah.
I mean, we want new music all the time. There's so many people that love music. I mean, the only thing I would say to that is that all the old music, there's a lot of old music around right now. Yeah. So anybody that puts anything new out, you got to know you're in competition with all this incredible old shit.
Which is huge blanket of fucking library.
Which is like readily available.
Yeah. On your phone.
And probably unlike when we were kids, when you and I were kids, like I was only listening to like my peer group. Yeah. I mean, when I was like 16 in 76, so for me it was all about the Clash, the Pistols. The Beatles were like ancient music. Yeah. They were like mum and pop stuff.
Yeah.
Ew.
Yeah, right.
It's only as I matured that I started to appreciate their validity.
Same with me. I hated Bruce, hated Pink Floyd, hated the Dead, all that. I was like, that's stupid shit. Yeah. Now it's all like all I listen to. Right. And I'm glad I didn't love everything out of the gate. There would be nothing more to listen to.
Exactly.
You'd be burnt. How does the power station happen? Because this, and if you, I want to talk to you real quick about something. One thing, the thread with John Taylor is anything that you're in, incredible fucking songs. Incredible. Some Like It Hot, man, that song, I mean, that is a smasher too. And how does this come together? Who writes the songs on this? What is the idea of the power station? Because I know Robert Palmer's in it for a minute, boom, then he's out. And then Michael DeBarge comes in. Robert Palmer's huge, Addicted to Love.
Well, it's back to Chic. And, again, this is like hard to imagine today, but like the summer of 82, it was like we were just grooving on Tony Thompson. And, we would I'm Coming Out would come on in a club, and you'd listen to Tony's drum intro. I mean, he just, I don't know, there was something about Tony Thompson just drumming. And we met Tony, he was drumming for David Bowie on the Serious Moonlight tour.
I saw that tour. Amazing.
And we bonded with him. And Andy and I were like, dude, we got to do it. We got to make a record with Tony. Make it and put him at the center of this, put him front and center. So that was kind of like the idea. The first idea was to call it Big Brother. And it was like this idea that we'd form this rhythm section. It'd be like the Stax House Band or something.
And different singers?
Exactly. And
You approached Jagger, I read.
No?
No?
We didn't. No, we didn't. But I find it interesting that you read that. But no. But he was working in the studio at the same time. But I assumed Nile would produce it.
Right.
But Nile wasn't available, and Tony was like, no, we got to get Bernard in for this. Well, I'd never met Bernard. And, Bernard was like my bass playing inspiration. So Bernard sort of comes on board. I don't know that I knew we were going to do Bang a Gong. I knew that was going to be, it was really born out of a pretty inane idea. Let's get this kind of like, rock funk super group together and cut a version of the T-Rex song. That was kind of it.
Wow.
And Robert, I would bump into him. He came to see us play in New York. We kind of became friends, just like hanging out. We used to like partying together, and I suggested that he tries out and comes and sings a song. And I think he sang. I forget what song it was, but then he asked if he could try the T-Rex song again. It's not unlike the story with Simon. Tony, Andy and I, we'd already cut a couple of tracks, sort of waiting, and so these tracks were like waiting for singers, but they had a sound. They had that Power Station sound already.
Great name, by the way.
It was the studio.
Love the name.
It was the studio where we recorded it.
But it just works.
Yeah, and so Robert says, have you got that T-Rex song? I'd like to have a go at it. So, he just nails it in like 10 minutes. And Bernard says, you don't need to look for any other voices. You've got the voice to the band. So then, Andy and I, we'd already done this demo for Some Like It Hot that was just the music, and it had the working title of Some Like It Hot, because we often used to take working titles from movies that we liked.
Oh, yeah.
And so Robert was like, Some Like It Hot, and some sweat when the heat is on, we're like, he liked that.
Yeah.
Some feel the heat and decide that they can't go on. Yeah.
That's a great lyric.
And Robert would really like, when lyrics started coming to him, he was just like, they'd come out of him, and he was so pleased with himself, and they'd be like, and he'd sing it and feel it at the same time. And when he loved the way some of that song, you want to multiply? Are you going to do it?
That's so great.
Get really excited about that.
Oh, man.
And, so we got that one down. And I remember like calling whoever was running Capitol Records at the time and saying, so Andy and I have been working on this like side project, I don't know whether you're interested in it. if you want to come on down and have a listen to it. And these guys came in from Capitol, and we played them Some Like It Hot, and we played them a couple of other songs, and they were like, oh my God, when can we put it out? We're like, now.
Yeah. That's so cool. Yeah. Just like that. But you guys, you didn't tour, did you?
We did Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
And then we put a tour on sale. And Robert decided at the last minute that he didn't want to tour. That, he had this deal with Island Records. Robert was broke when he did Power Station. It was crazy. He'd made a lot of very, very interesting records. And he's I feel now he's very undervalued. He should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I happen to think. But he'd made a lot of interesting records, but made no money. And Island made him an offer he couldn't refuse. And so he was at a point where he was able to say, I'm not going to go on tour with you guys. I've got some unfinished business. And he went back into the studio and did Addicted to Love and the Riptide album.
Just a monster. Monster.
So we kind of limped out on the road with Michael DeBars. That's when I first met Michael.
Yeah.
And, we did the dates. But by the time I got to the end of the tour, I was done. And I was done. And I think, that was definitely God working, doing for me that I might not have done for myself. Because I think if Robert had have stayed and we'd have toured as Power Station with Robert, I think it would have been an entirely different deal. And I think maybe that band would have continued, but it wouldn't have been as important as Duran Duran.
No.
As what Duran Duran would go on to do.
Yeah.
So, I got to the end of that tour and I was like, well, I was kind of done with bands, to be honest.
Yeah.
That point. And, but then, like I say, Nick came back, and then suddenly it's Nick, Simon, and I, and we're like, and it's just the three of us, and we really had to get close. But then we had Nile Rodgers producing the record, so then you've got Notorious suddenly. And
Nile Rodgers, man, what a legend. It's funny how they tried to get him into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame about 40 times. I think he finally got in this year. But every year it'd be like Nile Rodgers, Chic, and people would be like, who the fuck is this guy? Every time,
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
It is weird because I think a lot of people don't know his behind the scenes work in the rock and roll world. I mean, this guy did all kinds of shit that was groundbreaking.
Yeah, I don't know. It must be. Well, he wears it very well, I must say.
Yeah,
because I'd be so bitter and twisted if I was him. I think the thing. I mean, for me, he's more important than Quincy Jones. I mean, I don't even know why I pulled Quincy's name out, but in terms of perhaps the greatest sort of crossover, R&B producer of all time, let's say. I think Nile is, without doubt, absolutely unequal to Quincy Jones. I think the music that he made with Chic, I mean, the songbook that he created with Chic, I mean, how can anybody undervalue those songs?
I don't even think people know it, though, which is bizarre.
And
right?
yet they find themselves dancing to the grooves every time they go to a wedding.
Yeah.
And saying, "Oh, I love this song."
Who is this again?
Who happens to be the guy that kind of reinvents Bowie, reinvents Duran Duran more than once.
Is he the one responsible for the Moonlight Bowie era?
Let's Dance, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's right, because I remember that. That Moonlight, Return of the Thin White Duke, and Let's Dance. And,
didn't do Thin White Duke, but he did do Let's Dance.
No, but I'm saying Return. That's what they kind of nicknamed it. Return of the Thin White Duke. Let's Dance, China Girl, that whole tour. I saw that tour, and it was one of the greatest performances I've ever seen. And it just seemed like that Niles was right in sync with what was going on during then of dance rock, of Duran Duran, Bowie, Michael Jackson. You got fucking Madonna.
Yeah.
Who else did we have then? It was there was this, I don't know when Terrence Trent D'Arby was, the actual year, but there was this thing going on, Prince, that was dance rock. It was definitely rock because there was guitar there always.
I mean, I think he's probably the last. We're never going to see anybody quite like him. I mean, as a producer, musician, I mean, there's nothing he doesn't know about the fretboard of a guitar. There's really nothing he doesn't know about, about music and about harmony and he just brings a vibe to the room. He walks into a room and suddenly you're in Nile's band, and if you're in Nile's band, you're the shit.
Yeah.
And and I don't think, and we made quite a few good records with Nile, and I don't think there was any stress involved in any of them. And, there was certainly no kind of, pouring over. I mean, he's just such a font of vibe. And, he's just, Bernard too, he was a little more inward than Nile. I can only imagine that the two of them together, sort of in the room producing Diana Ross, but their own music. I cannot even imagine what those sessions must have been like. But no, he's remarkable.
Do you remember when there had to be a time where you just sat down and went, I'm fucking rich. Come on, dude. The amount of records that were selling at the time of that machine of Duran Duran, you had to be like, wow.
But I think everybody goes. I mean, if you're blessed to have that kind of success, I think there comes a point. I mean, no, it doesn't last.
Yeah.
It just doesn't last. A run like that, sooner or later, it's going to end. You are not going to be the shit forever, and sort of for a while, you're kind of like the momentum of what you've done is carrying you on. So you're living the life, but actually you don't have the value in the culture as you had, maybe a year or more ago. And gradually, if you're lucky, you start coming down to earth. You start seeing empty seats at the back, and you start in MTV say, actually, we're not adding this one to rotation, and suddenly like formats are changing, and you're not fitting in anymore, and I definitely went through a period of feeling like I was, yesterday's man, have you got anything, maybe you're done, maybe you've given all you've got to give, and you have to. And I mean, I wouldn't be sitting here without my brothers, particularly Simon and Nick, because we've got this between us. We've been able to sort of like coach each other through the changes and the ups and downs, and and how you maintain a sense of self, and and I mean, there was years I couldn't listen to anything that we'd recorded. It all sounded like crap to me, and then somebody comes along and you hear something that you did in a different context, and you're like, actually, you know what, that's not bad. And somebody will say, not bad.
Yeah.
And then
that's what I'm saying.
And then
not bad.
You find sort of like an objectivity about your work.
Yeah.
And it's not all about how you felt. It's not about how you feel. It's like it lives. It has its place, and and it's not the most important, but it's not insignificant either. And then you're kind of in a decent place to then start being present now, and like, okay, who are we, and what are we doing, and what's the new album about, and what are the shows going to look like next year?
Yeah.
And like, how can we make something out
Carry
of it?
that legacy and give people the thrill when they're out there. Like, this is incredible.
I mean, at the end of the 80s, people would say to me, "You guys still together? Isn't it time you packed it in?" But like today, I actually think like somebody's got to stay together.
I believe that.
It's like with marriages. It's like I don't know how many, your peer group. You start getting married. And your friends get married, and your nephews, and then they all start getting divorced or separated, and you're like, damn, is anybody going to stay together? Somebody's got to stay together. They're on their second marriage, but it seems to be working.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I mean, look at the Stones, obviously. I mean, we all of us, the Stones wrote the book. The day the Beatles broke up, the Stones became the most important band ensemble of electric rock musicians in the world. Yeah. And they have had to, they have had to like make this trail that the rest of us follow. And they say to us, you can do this, but you have to observe certain rules.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so you've got to take it seriously. But if you treat your audience with respect, and you treat each other with respect, treat the music with respect, you can have a career. Yep. Which means you can have a good time, playing your instrument and being that guy from Duran Duran.
Let's talk a little bit about Neurotic Outsiders. Saw the band in San Francisco. That was an interesting era. It was like 95, 94. The Viper Room was electric. Yep. The Viper Room was it was a rock star itself as a nightclub. Johnny Depp, of course, there. All the people from Friends were hanging there. Adam Duritz from the Counting Crows as a bartender. Neurotic Outsiders start putting together something just to jam there for fun, and eventually gets a record deal and puts out a record. Started out with Billy Idol and Steve Stevens, right, for a little bit.
No, it was really all about Steve Jones.
Gotcha.
And in the same way as I would say that Power Station was about Tony Thompson, Neurotic Outsiders was about Steve Jones. And I got to know Steve in Sobriety. And
Are you sober?
yeah.
Gotcha.
And so Matt Sorum says somehow there's a fundraiser of some kind at the Viper Room, and Matt and Duff ask Steve and I if we want to play a couple of songs with them, and we're like, well, what could we play? And I think we played Suffragette City, and maybe a Pistols song, something one of Steve's Pistols songs,
Right.
like Silly Thing, I think, and maybe Pretty Bacon, and it's fun, because like you said, it was suddenly like, I hadn't played in a club, in a jam-packed club with that kind of atmosphere in a long time, and I was kind of newly sober, so actually I didn't mind being out at 11 o'clock on a Monday night.
Yeah.
And so then we come out of there, and Sal, who ran the club,
Oh, yeah.
said, you guys should do Monday nights. Oh my God. Anybody that knows me, like when it comes, ask John Taylor. Don't ask John Taylor for advice, because he'll just tell you to find a residency. Because that's one of my guiding principles. Find a residency. So you've got this gig every week, and you've got to show up, and you've got to put a set together. So it's an opportunity to.
You got a purpose.
Yeah.
It's the Beatles. They created that.
The Cavern.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, we're like, okay, so we're going to need some songs. So Steve's got a few songs. I'm like, well, what about if we do like a punk rock version of Planet Earth, And so we put this show together, and then then we start inviting guests. So not only do you have this very unusual 4-piece on stage, people are looking at, they're going, John Taylor, Steve Jones, John Taylor, Steve Jones,
Yeah.
Duff McKagan.
Yeah.
Man,
What a great combo.
And at the same time, their heads are being like driven into the wall, because it was a really powerful sound.
Yeah.
And Steve. It was.
Steve was at the top of his game too. He was completely in shape. He sang great. He looked great. He was a fucking star.
Yeah.
And he talked a little bit about it on my podcast of like, that was an era where he was sober, so he would just ride around in his Harley, no shirt on, just girls, and he's just like, yeah, all right, I'm gonna partake in this rock star world, And you guys put out a record that was kind of right in.
Yeah, we sort of built this show, and to me, I used to call it like what do I call it, like the story, the entire history of punk rock or something. And we did, and I would say we reached its apogee one night where we had, I think, Iggy Pop, Billy Idol, and Brian Setzer and Slash. All on this, like at different points in the show, and it was like, and we played everything.
Wow!
And then we got offered this record deal. I feel
on Maverick, which was Madonna's label, and they were giving everyone deals.
And I feel with hindsight that really the album should have been that show.
Yeah.
But I think Steve particularly saw it as an opportunity to, he was a songwriter, and it was like, no, I'm going to write some songs for it. So. Instead of it being this album that could have been almost live, really, that would have had a number of different guests and a few original songs. We did this album of original songs, and then as luck would have it, just as we're about to put the record out, Axl calls Duff and Matt and says, I want to put the G&R back together. It was like, it was, and the Sex Pistols do a reunion.
Yeah, that's right, with Paul Cook, right?
Yeah, no, with Johnny Rotten. They do this whole reunion
on
thing.
Lollapalooza or something.
And so, again, it was like, I really enjoyed it. It was amazing. I mean, I was on burnout number 2 at this point.
Yeah.
You know, I was done with the studio. You know, Duran, we'd gone on another round. We'd reinvented the band in the 90s, but that also had worn me out. And I was I'm kind of washed up in LA, and I was like getting sober, and I was really focusing on trying to like just stay sober, you know, stay monogamous, be a dad, you know, be a decent dad, and you know, put one foot in front of the other. But like, so that the Neurotic Outsiders, it was kind of like a fun. It was like, oh wow, I get to go and play punk rock with Steve Jones.
Yeah.
It was amazing. But did I want to turn it into a career? Not really.
Yeah. It was kind of grungy, the record. It was an answer around then. Even if you look at the video, it looks a little bit like Teen Spirit.
Yeah.
And has that kind of flavor. You know, it's a kind of a grungy kind of record, which was what was happening at the time.
I remember we went on it. We were promoting the record. I feel like we were somewhere like Seattle or somewhere, and I think Steve and we went on this like, you know, alternative hard rock radio station, which they would never have had me on.
Right.
And I remember it was coming to the end. It was like this new music moment, and they were like, and they played these 2 records back to back, and they asked the audience to choose, and it was Jerk, it was the Neurotic Outsiders, and it was a Rage Against the Machine record, you know. And like the kids that were listening were like, come on, I mean, it's Rage, duh.
Yeah.
You know, that really we were like vaudeville compared to
Fuck you, I want to
really,
tell me.
what was really going on.
Yeah.
You know, but like I'm just really grateful that I got to take that journey.
Yeah.
With those guys. I mean, I remember when, because grunge, you know, obviously had been a massive movement, and I had no part in it. There was, you know, I couldn't see myself in it at all. And yet I hadn't gone to Seattle in years. And so when Neurotics went to Seattle, and Duff, which is Duff's hometown, and so I got to go to Seattle after grunge, but with that outfit, and play a few clubs around Seattle, and just taste what that music scene had been like. You know, it was like going to like the scene of a battle, you know, that had taken place, you know, and because by this point, it's kind of like I think maybe Kurt was gone. We you know, it was definitely like the embers, the dying embers of grunge. But it's like I got to experience it like as a musician. That was like, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, we're all into the same shit, you know, yeah, I mean, it was an amazing experience.
What was your problem? Like you said, you were kind of just washed up in LA, but what were you into? Were you just coking and boozing and shit? What was happening?
Well, I definitely. I mean, towards the end of my. I mean, I just couldn't control. I just couldn't control myself. I mean, I probably couldn't for quite a few years. It just became so apparent to me that, you know. I mean, I knew I had a problem with drugs, like in my late 20s.
Right.
But like I didn't.
During the Duran Duran big beat, you were what was your thing? Coke?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't even like alcohol that much, but the alcohol was the gateway.
And
that's when I realized that later on. You know, by the time I got to the end of my 20s, I'm thinking I got to stay away from Coke, because, you know, every time I do it, you know, I don't know. I wake up somewhere, I don't know where I am, you know, and I'm good for nothing the next day, you know, and but I hadn't made that connection with booze, you know. I'm thinking, well, I can still, you know, drink occasionally, you know, and more it's becoming apparent that like I've only got to have like, you know, a glass of wine, and like a few hours later, I'm on my freaking knees outside some club somewhere, and so that's scary, you know. I mean, I think that, you know, it's one thing acknowledging that you got a problem with drugs, you know, but then when you realize every time you have a glass of alcohol that subsequently you are going to have a problem with drugs.
Oh, well, I would never do coke unless I was drunk.
Well,
it's weird to do coke straight. That's a weird animal.
Right, but it's a much bigger problem because booze is everywhere.
Everywhere.
I mean, you've got to go out of your way to score drugs.
Yep.
But but booze is everywhere. So when you realize you've got a problem with booze, holy fuck, you don't want to leave the house.
Yeah.
And so I was really glad that I found I found a program, or the program found me. And but it's just part of that. I mean, I got completely rebuilt. I'm like,
well, you look fantastic.
It's like I feel like I'm like one of these animals, that like has been completely remade, every bit of me. I feel like if you were interviewing me in '82, nothing of what you're seeing here would have been sitting on the couch. It's all been replaced. I'm like the $6 million man.
Yeah. It would have been a whole different. It would have been rock star John Taylor, Duran Duran, with some sunglasses on.
Probably had to replace him with something somewhat more robust.
Yeah. I read somewhere. Somebody told me, because I'm a car guy. I'm a big car guy, that you had the first right-hand drive DeLorean. Is that true?
I did have a DeLorean. I don't know whether it was the first right-hand drive.
But it was a right-hand drive one, right?
Well, I was sitting in the power station when I'd just arrived. We were working on that album. And it was this top floor lounge area adjacent to the studio. And the DeLorean case is on TV.
Yeah.
And I'm turning like to whoever's within listening. I'm like, I gotta get one of those cars. They're gonna be worth a fortune. So like, I'm like calling my accountant. You gotta find me one of those DeLoreans. I think I paid, £15,000.
Yeah. So like 30 grand.
In 1985, I think you can get them now for $15,000.
Yeah.
They actually, as cars go, they really haven't, because they're crap.
Well, they're slow as fuck, which is interesting. They look fast as hell, but they're slow as fuck. And I see them all over. There's a guy in Florida that owns like 40 of them, and he just posted a photo of them. And he has them, people rent them for events and shit. Right. But do you remember they made a rare run of red ones? No. Oh, fuck. So are you a car guy?
Yeah.
Do you have, what are you into? What do you got now?
Oh, I've got a Tesla.
Oh, rad. Which one, the sedan or the 3?
The X.
The S.
The X. I mean, it's like
the X. I love that.
It's like driving a laptop.
Oh man!
But I've got my stepdaughter's 72 Bronco.
Oh shit!
And I'm saying to my wife, I gotta drive this thing. It's like I really have to drive it. She's like, why do you want to? I don't know. That's
a cool ride.
It plays to the driver in me.
That's a cool ride, dude. The 72 Bronco is so dope.
Yeah. I mean,
what are some crazy cars you have? Did you have any Porsches or Ferraris?
Yeah. No, never had a Ferrari.
Porsches?
I bought a really amazing 58 stretch Cadillac limousine that I bought off a garage forecourt down on Melrose in '85. And I shipped that back to the UK thinking, if we get to go to Buckingham Palace to get our OBEs, I'm going to go in that.
Whoa.
Well, that never happened.
Oh.
So I got rid of that. But, I don't know. I like, I've had a couple of Aston Martins.
Yeah, those are great.
Yeah.
Are you guys in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
No.
No, I was just there. It's like, come on. Duran's got to be in there. Yeah, I mean, whatever.
I got to induct Roxy Music this year.
Wow,
and that was a real.
That's pretty badass.
In some ways, that was more interesting to me than the band getting inducted.
Yeah, your wife owns Juicy, right?
She did.
Yeah, she did. Did she sell it or she still own it? That was a massive designer brand. I mean, every woman on the planet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that had to be some crazy money.
Yeah, I mean, really. When I met her, we started dating, and she, and I knew that she, that was what she did, that she had this clothing brand, and I'd never heard of it. But whenever I would mention it to other gal pals, they'd say, "Oh my God, my Juicy, I love Juicy, I love my Juicy." I'd be like,
yeah.
And that's when I knew this was not just a clothing line.
No,
this was like this had the makings of a phenomena.
It's a way of life.
And I watched her, take that ride, to just like where it was like world domination.
It really was.
It was really amazing, and it was, but and we both we're both fashion victims.
Yeah, of course.
So it's probably like food and fashion are like our two, those are the two things that we really bond over.
I love fashion. It makes me crazy. I was talking to a guy yesterday. I got some new sunglasses. He handles this huge sunglass brand, Jacques-Marie Mage. Some of the greatest sunglasses on the planet. There's a pair right there. And I said to him, I think that sunglasses are the most rock and roll thing in rock and roll. It's the guitar and sunglasses before the leather jacket, because not everyone wore a leather jacket in music, but everyone wore sunglasses as a musician. And it's amazing to think about how people are really known for shapes they wore. And every photo, somebody's got them on. I recently just saw Elton John. The whole band's wearing sunglasses. ZZ Top. Just the song Cheap Sunglasses. I mean, it is unbelievable. Sunglasses should be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Well, when you live in Los Angeles, you've really got to wear sunglasses.
Oh, you do.
So you become... I mean, when I was like growing up, sunglasses were kind of like... It was a pose.
Yeah.
But living in Los Angeles, it's a necessity.
It
You're
is.
to drive, you got to wear sunglasses. So then when I go back to like, Middle England, and I got my sunglasses on, they're like, what the fuck? Who is this guy?
Yeah.
Hey, you from LA or something?
I just got that. I was in Cleveland. I asked for Perrier, and the lady, she's like, what are you, from LA? Perrier. I go, it's the same fucking price as regular water. They're 99 cents, you idiot, Oh, man. Before I get out of here, bass gear, real quick, because I am a huge music gear freak. You have any cool vintage basses? Did you care about vintage? Because I know you played Aria, right?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I played Aria and Peavey from the get-go. And, Aria they'd just broken through, it was the end of the 70s, beginning of the 80s. It was all about Japanese gear.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted Gibson and Fender. That was like the old dinosaur shit.
Yeah.
But like Yamaha, Ibanez, for me, Aria, that was my instrument. And I don't know how Peavey. Again, I didn't want Marshall, didn't want Fender. Peavey was kind of new, cool. I had
Skinnerd was using them.
Were they?
Yeah.
And amazingly, full circle, it's all I use on stage is Peavey, and I use Peavey guitars. And,
Peavey guitars.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I've got every time I've tried to. I mean, I've said this a few times. There's some bandwidth available. The available bandwidth within the sound of Duran Duran for the bass.
I gotcha.
It's quite a narrow. So if ever I do, like, I mean, try an Ampeg, with like, I don't know, like, I mean, I've got a Music Man. I've got a couple of basses that used to belong to Bernard. Actually, he gave me his Music Man. That occasionally I will use on Duran recordings, and it takes up a lot of room. It takes up a lot of room in the Duran sound. So
yeah, because that bass in Duran's tight. Yeah. It's in there. It's like it's just a thump, thump, the bump. It's not like the big round underneath.
Yeah, there's no room for resonance. Really, there's no room for room.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not that kind of a sound. But I Peavey have been like, I call them they're like BMW. They're like 100% reliable. They're always there for me. If I want, can I get a 5 of that? I mean, I didn't keep most of the instruments that I used in the early 80s. I mean, there was so much stuff.
Yeah.
Accumulated in such a short space of time. I gave everything away. I didn't care. It was like easy come, easy go. And then I get to like, 20 years ago, I'm like, shit, where is all that stuff? And I had to start buying stuff back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like the kubiki that I used for a while, and I had to like, get one of those, and I had to, found a couple of Arias, and but they're like cars. I mean, you can only drive one at a time.
It's so true.
Talk about Jonesy. I mean, he's got, oh my God, you go into his house, he's just got so many guitars. It's like, Steve,
Yeah.
Yeah. But, of course, when we're kids, it's the dream.
It is just to have a shitload of guitars and cars.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, I got a Ferrari, I got a Porsche, I got a Bronco,
Yeah.
I got a fucking helicopter here. And after a while, as you get older, you're like, I don't want to have anything.
Well, yeah, because they all take, they've all got to be stored and they've all got to be maintained. And,
I know.
So.
Well, I got to tell you, it was an honor to have you on.
Thanks.
I think that Duran Duran is just fucking amazing. I always thought the songs were just mind-boggling. And yesterday, as I played them all day again, I was like, my buddy Fletch and I were just like, Duran Duran is just the shit, man. And even though millions of hits and everything, I still feel super underrated. And and at the same time, Depeche Mode was going and everything. I'm like, this shit is right here is the same to me.
Yeah.
Maybe not as dark, but the songs are just incredible. And every band that plays now, these fucking county fairs and shit, they got like one shit song, and they just tour it forever. You have an army of tunes. So to go see you live is just going to be festive as hell. It's not like, let's just sit here all day and wait for the one song.
Yeah.
Are you guys on tour right now? You do one-offs? What do you do?
We just played Kaboo down in San Diego. So we had a little run of shows that led up to that. We played in the Bay Area a couple of times.
Did you do Tahoe, my friend said?
We did.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, like, we rolled up to that expecting it to be... it was one of the few times where, like, it was way beyond what any of our expectations were. It was a phenomenal show. We're really enjoying our music. We're really enjoying playing, really getting along. We're in the middle of an album.
Oh, yeah?
That we're very excited about.
You're making an album right now?
Yeah.
Holy shit, in L.A.?
In London.
Does Simon live in London?
No, they all live. The rest of them all live in London, and they're sort of picking up in a week or so's time, and then I'll be out to join them in a few weeks' time.
Wow, I can't wait to hear that. Who's producing it?
Errol Alcan.
Who's that?
Well, he was a DJ. He started out as a DJ. He's kind of known for
remixes and shit,
sort of alternative, like pop dance. He was kind of involved with Breaking LCD Sound System.
Oh wow!
He's been producing artists, slowly getting a rep. He worked on the Last Killers track on I'm the Man. He worked on that, did additional production. He's got great energy. We worked with Mark Ronson. He's produced a couple of songs.
Wow!
And we're going to be working with Giorgio Moroder.
Wow.
Which is a first. It's I'm really excited about. It's kind of like getting to date the girl you had a crush on at school.
Yeah.
After all these years, going into the studio with Giorgio Moroder. So that's going to be really interesting.
That's going to be crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. When's this record coming out? Next year?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait, man. Well, thank you so much. Do you have Instagram, or you do any of that shit? Twitter?
Duran Duran are on Instagram.
Cool. All right.
That's enough for me.
Well, this is coming out today, so do you have some tour dates coming up, or no?
No, there's nothing, as I said, we're really all about, very focused on getting a new album finished, so that will form the basis. Next year's our 40th anniversary,
Wow.
So, there's going to be, events around that. We're going to be hopefully playing in, the States and in the UK, celebrating that. But, as is our way, everybody feels the best way we could celebrate 40 years in the business is...
New record.
Exactly.
That's the way to go. Well, thank you so much. I mean, what an honor to have you here, and it was great to finally meet you after all these years. I always go into that liquor store not to buy liquor, but a water next to the Viper Room. And at the register, there's that Neurotic Outsiders picture still sitting there, signed at Nate's, you know? It's still there.
Yeah.
And I just go, that's so fucking cool. That photo is right there.
It was that was an amazing jam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Let There Be Talk. Don't forget the Patreon channel has all the bonus episodes. Patreon.com/Dean Del Rey. Also, subscribe to the YouTube channel, Dean Del Rey. And I will see you out there. I'll be in Chicago this Friday night at the Chicago Theater. And then I will be in Omaha and Detroit, Nashville, and Vegas. All tour dates are on DeanDelRey.com. Candles lit.